When we think about the future of healthcare, our minds often go straight to medicine, doctors, and new treatments. But today we're going to talk about the physical foundation that makes all of that life saving work possible, the infrastructure itself. Help me in welcoming Dr. Garold Hamilton to Conversations with Kerry today. Dr. Hamilton is the Senior Vice President and U.S. Healthcare Sector Leader at Introba, one of the world's largest building engineering and consulting firms. With over 25 years of experience, Dr. Hamilton is a licensed professional engineer in both the US and Europe, and his work in designing and constructing world class healthcare facilities spans the globe. A proud graduate of the University of the West Indies, Dr. Hamilton is also a fellow of the American Hospital Association and a prolific author. Dr. Hamilton was honored with the Governor General of Jamaica's Order of Distinction for his work and contribution to Jamaica. April 29, we will have the distinct honor of welcoming Dr. Hamilton back to Jamaica for his third consecutive year at the Global Healthcare Conference. He will be keynote speaker for day two, which is April 29, in Silo, St. Elizabeth, Jamaica, where he will be sharing his critical insights on infrastructure, resiliency, and rebuilding. Dr. Hamilton, it is an absolute pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you so much for taking the time and for your expertise, sharing your expertise with your audience.
Thank you, thank you. It's always a pleasure. Always absolute pleasure to be involved with this conference. My third year. Seems like it. Got it. But I think it's such a relevant conference because of the importance of healthcare, especially the challenges that we had Hurricane Melissa. And it shines a light on how do we build back, not only how we build back what we thought, but how can we build so that we don't have these challenges, how can we be resilient in terms of the healthcare facilities that we design? How can we harness the structure so that they withstand category 5 and respect your hurricanes. So those are some of the stuff that we talked about in this conference as well.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Hamilton. I must say from the get go, one of the things that I speak about a lot, I remember just like how you just left a meeting to jump in this meeting with us, one year you flew in for the meeting and flew out after the meeting. And let me tell you, that has made an indelible mark on it, just demonstrates your dedication to the people of Jamaica, to your profession, and the importance of infrastructure. And you take it so seriously that you never miss an opportunity to share your knowledge with others so that they can understand. And yes, I'm glad we've been having the conversation since 2024. And look at it now. It's the conversation we've been having is so relevant today because it's the information, for example, that I learned from you in 2024 and 2025 that is going to be used to rebuild Jamaica and healthcare in this unprecedented time.
True.
With your over 25 years of experience in designing and constructing healthcare facilities across the US and across Europe,
Yes.
what has been your most significant shift that you've witnessed in how hospitals are built today compared with when you first started?
So,
So,
to be honest,
to be honest,
hospitals
hospitals
are
are
um, a constant
constant
living
living
change
change
mechanisms
mechanisms
anywhere.
anywhere.
So
So
if it doesn't
if it doesn't
change
change
per year,
per
it's
year, it's
changing every 4 years significantly. So one of the things that I understand, that we know that we have to deal with, is change management. So in the U.S. and in most, even in the UK, they have code requirements that are changed every 4 years. Meaning you have to design every 4 years, and these are actually committees. So if it's an engineering guidelines or a healthcare guidelines, the guidelines in the U.S. is called facility guidelines, FGI. The FGI Institute actually every 4 years they basically updated the design for healthcare facilities codes, and then there's an associated code by American Society of Healthcare Engineers. Does a code called ASHRAE 170, which deals with the ventilation and all the engineering requirements within the healthcare space as well. And it has a 4 year cycle as well. So it keeps changing, it keeps becoming much more stringent, but it also, and these are doctors, engineers, and facility folks sit on these committees to make decision based on what they see going on in healthcare facilities, to solve problems, to make changes that are necessary to improve patient outcomes within hospitals. So it's not that there's wholesale changes, is that there's constant change that happen within hospitals that we have to keep abreast and keep updated with. And if you look at most hospital system now, say back in the days you have ward system. In Jamaica, you still have wards, which you don't have in the US anymore. But you have
have, can you hear me? So you have single patient rooms. Sometimes you have quads, but in the U.S. now, all hospitals have been converted to a 100% single patient room. That's the massive change that you used to have quads, but now because of one, infection control, and two, really and truly having much more patient centered healthcare, so that it can be, you can have your privacy, your family could spend time with you within those rooms and stuff, and it's much more, it's a better quality of care that you administer as part of that, and I think that's extremely important to understand that it's really about the patient, and everything that you do on the all the decisions that you make, it's about making sure that you're taking care of the patient, you're feeling comfortable, but you have the best outcomes that's possible within that healthcare space. And that's why I think, we continue to tweak, we continue to change healthcare just to make sure that we focus on what's actually important, and that's the patient at the center of everything.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And you know, I'm so glad I'm speaking with you today. But I have to tell you that one of the things that got me, and I think we laughed about this in the past, is your alphabet soup of credentials. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm afraid to call some of them PECENGLEED, APFASHE, and that's just to name a few.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but those alphabets are very important for those outside the engineering world. How do these rigorous standards directly translate into a safer and more efficient hospital for both patients and staff?
Yeah, and that's why, I think continuous learning is extremely important. So that's something that I'm passionate about. I always think that there's always room for growth, and in doing that, there's different qualifications, certifications that's available out there. So if you want to be an expert in something, I think you have to be able to to command it, and also metrically to the standard of their requirements, is whether you're a lead AP engineer, which is leadership in energy and environmental design, meaning that you can design a space to be sustainable in every way, whether it's water, whether it's energy, what is the type of building material, whether it's if you're looking at um, the external facility, make sure that it's watertight, making sure, all the different stuff that you don't really think that's important, but what does the guide allow you to do is giving you a checklist to make sure that you're writing specifications to the persons who's going to be designing and constructing that building, that they understand what you're trying to do so that they could build it towards the standard. So having those certifications give you the opportunity to understand the process and understand how to implement it as part of your project. I think it's extremely important to follow guidelines because that's what healthcare design is about. It's unlike any other design. I could say maybe laboratory design, if you're going to, do some research facilities, it's quite similar, but it's not an office building. It's not a school. It's very different. There's constraints that's governed by codes and guidelines that you have to follow because there's patients within that space. There's infection control that can be a huge issue. There's adjacency with respect to the department to flow, for the space to flow in the right way, for staff to move in the right way, for patients to move in the right way. So, it's not just a normal space. It's really a critical, it's critical to make sure that you have the right people and the right professionals being a part of the designing that process. And I preach something to you. You wouldn't believe that when I'm designing a healthcare facility, I'm sitting in a room with nursing practitioners. Um, we have engineers, architects, as well as contractors who have been a part of the process. But you have owners as well. But you always want to make sure that you have the right uh, person who understand the space. A nurse, it's funny. I have nurse working for Michael. So a nurse working for an engineering firm it's completely ludicrous maybe 20 years ago. But this is a commonplace in the industry. The nurses are working for healthcare for architects, and they're an important part of the design because they understand the space so they could help you to visualize it, help you to make sure that what you're doing makes sense, and making sure that when you're designing that space, um, and maybe you're implementing something new, they can go through the rigor of it and make sure that when that space open day one, that they can teach some of the staff to help them along with using these stuff. Or otherwise, sometimes to be honest, when you do it without them, you will have these systems that being designed and constructed and never been used. It just sits because no one understands or no one were able to who weren't a part of the system understand how to use it and how to make it work. So it's important to have all the stakeholders and no one should be left in it. And nurse is an important part of the design process.
I am so very happy that you said that because uh, working healthcare leadership, I remember there was I did not realize until I had to engage with the plant operations director the importance of architecture and building design and engineering in healthcare. And I thought I'm a healthcare leader, and yet I had such little information about it. So when we did our research and we realized the deficit, and we decided to include um, engineering, architecture, um, and technologies in the healthcare conference, we were often criticized. We were criticized to the point that we were thinking that we should exclude it. But I'm really glad that we did not. And so I say this to say that people often think of healthcare purely in terms of doctors and medicine and nurses, but building engineering plays such a massive role. You just explained to us the structural role, as in the operational role. Okay, what goes where, how it helps, but can you explain for those of us, even healthcare leaders who are not aware, the
Yeah.
elements of engineering that directly impacts patient care?
So let's just
So
start
let's just start with
with the whole
with
facility.
the whole
What you want to do, the first thing you want to do is understand, and what an engineer does is to make sure that one, the building is has enough power, so that all the equipment within the building works. And not only work, we call something normal power and emergency power, because you're going to have power outage, you're going to have disaster, whatever it is, to affect the power that comes into your building. So you have to make sure that you have equipment like MRIs, CT scans that need special power requirements. So the power is one of the requirements as an infrastructure engineer to make sure that you have enough power to sustain the building in a normal, but also in an emergency situation. So whether it's generators, whether it's UPS systems, those are stuff that are complex in terms of design that you have to design. So something as simple as to say, if the power goes from the main, you have 15 seconds to get the generator started. And if the generator doesn't start, that means you don't have power. You have to design your system to make sure that the generator will start up on call for power when it's required and when needed. So the intricate power design has to do with that. Is done by a electrical engineer as part of that's part of the whole ecosystem of designers. Then you have water, extremely important for the facilities. Whether it's drinking potable water, whether it's water to actually to feed a dialysis machine, has to be cleaned. So it can't be. It's not a normal potable water, so it has to go through what you call a reverse osmosis process. So you have to have a treatment system that you're designing within your hospital to provide the right type of water. There's also another water called deionized water. So there's a lot of different complexity that have to do with water within that space. You have cooling as well. So cooling within the space is extremely important. You have to maintain the temperature within that environment. Not only, and then it varies from room to room. You could have 50 different rooms that have 50 different temperature requirements because that's how healthcare is. If you're thinking about doing a burn surgery, you're doing a burn surgery, you need high temperatures within the space when you're doing a burn surgery because of the comfort level that has to do with it. And you think about doing an orthopedic surgery, you need low temperatures, 62 degrees as opposed to maybe like 16, 17 degrees Celsius. So it varies even, within the space, and you have to be intricate as an engineer to design the space so that it can flex to that type of design. There's also something called air change rate, which is the amount of time the air that changes within the space. It's extremely important because that will tell you how the quality of air that you have in that space. You need that for infection control. So those are some of the stuff that, I could go on and on. And then you have to have a complex system of plants that supply this massive, sometimes hospital that you call a central utility plant that has your power, your generator, you have your chillers, your boilers and heating system that takes care, of your whole building. So to be honest, I didn't even know that these things existed when I leave engineering school. But then I, was introduced to this MEP system design for hospitals. I was introduced to MEP system design for normal commercial buildings first, which I fully understood. And then when I met hospital, I'm like, whoa, this is really complex. And for my mind, I like complex challenges. And I just got drawn, to doing it, and this is what I've been doing for 25 years. So this is something that it's not. I can't tell you that it's easy. It's not. It's very complex. The code changes even with respect to air change requirement within a space can change every 4 years. So these are some of the stuff that you have to follow, and you have to make sure that it's implemented as part of your total design, infrastructure design for your hospital.
Thank you so much. You can't just put up a building and put a sign on it and call it a hospital. And I believe this is so important, especially if a person is going to become a healthcare leader, to understand actually how the facility, how the building itself works and participates, I like to call
Yeah.
it, in patient care. All right, so I think this is necessary for every healthcare leader, whether you're a doctor or nurse or a MBA executive, or if you're going, if you know, persons who are interested in owning a healthcare facility. These are things that are important for them to know. So, another question for you, Dr. Hamilton. As a lead AP professional, and a building industry expert with advanced knowledge of green building practices and rating systems, sustainability is clearly a priority for you. So, how do we balance the immense energy demands of a modern 24/7 hospital with the urgent global need for environmentally green and sustainable practices?
And initially,
Initially,
initially, I think it was
I
a
think it was
problem
a problem
when
when
need was just
need was just
and then lead become more intense that you actually have lead for hospitals now, which speaks specifically about hospital systems, hospital operations, how hospital is designed, and how it's constructed. So I think over the years it's become much better because one of the challenges with hospital construction is extremely high, as compared to a normal office building. And that's because of the challenges with codes and the guidelines that you have to design and construct and build to. So, but the situation is that lead has become, or energy efficiency and sustainability has become what we call table stakes in design. We don't want to over design because if you over design, it's going to cost. And cost, that's going to be a challenge for your budget. But we want to make sure that the basic stuff with respect to your central plans, the energy efficiency is extremely important. So you're choosing the right equipment, you're choosing the right efficiency within those equipment, you're making sure the operational protocols, lend to energy savings as part of it. You're making sure that your water system is designed to save water, whether it's you're capturing some of the water, rainwater, for irrigation, making sure that you run off, you're designing your hospital and hospital system that you're creating a nuisance to the water stream that's surrounding those buildings. You're making sure that the water that you were actually that's coming from your building is captured and strategically delivered into those streams and those different water streams that's necessary. So there's a lot that's actually going into it, but it's all about energy efficiency. It's about recycling. It's about making sure that your building is operating in the right way so that you could save money, but also sustainability is also resilience. It's making sure that you have the right materials that when you build your walls and your surfaces, it's wipeable, so that germs and bacteria are not, or don't live, in these buildings or these hospitals as well, to cause patient harm. So it covers a whole, you know, that, it covers a huge aspect of really important sustainability questions and answers so that when you're walking through the design, these can be addressed as part of the design grading. And what it is now, it becomes so much of a table stake that people don't even like apply for the rating now. They design a building to be designed to be LEED equivalent, meaning that you're going to put in whether you like it or not. It's going to be a part of the design. And a lot of healthcare systems have standards, and their standards include in design to a certain sustainable requirement as well. So, this is just something that maybe 10 years ago they were paying people extra to come in and help them to be LEED certified. Now it's just like, no, we're not paying you extra. It's a part of how you should be designed anyway. So those are some of the stuff. And that's, obviously, let's talk, that's in the first world country, which is in the US and the UK and a lot of European countries. In the Caribbean, we're not there yet. That's something that we're still trying to figure out and understand, and something that we've implemented. We have a few LEED buildings in Jamaica, so they have design buildings maybe requirements. There's no LEED hospitals in Jamaica as yet, and that's something that I think that we should be looking to get done as part of this rebuild that we're going to do for Hurricane Melissa, is to really figure out how we can be much more sustainable. And it's an important conversation that they're having right now. So that's something that I'm excited about, and something that we know that will serve our patients and our population much better when these buildings are designed and constructed.
I'm trying to stay in my seat because I'm getting so excited just hearing you speak about this. I love healthcare so much. And I really am glad to be a part of the conversations that are taking place right now. And I'm so glad that you're here to teach us so much because as you're talking, there are things like, oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, yes, I didn't think about that. Oh, my gosh. So I cannot imagine what else you have for us. However, I do have a few more questions that I really want to ask you. You are a fellow of the American Hospital Association, quite a prolific author of books, and I think over 40 published articles. My question for you is what is the most pressing infrastructure blind spot that you feel current healthcare administrators are not paying enough attention to?
So one of the I I wouldn't say blind spot. I'm gonna say to you that um, one of the great equalizer for healthcare is technology integration, which we're not understanding because there's so much silo system in a hospital. You have electronic medical records. You have a fire system. You have operation room systems. You have RTLS systems in terms of different equipment management. You have yeah, a billing management system. There's so much different silos. You have patient monitoring systems. What it is that I think a lot of hospitals are missing is that there's the ability to pull all these systems together to work as one unit. And when you do this, it's called technology integration. And when you do this, you're designing what you call a smart hospital. Smart hospital is something that there's a few hospitals that I could call the Penn Medicine New Pavilion is a smart hospital. You walk into the patient room, you have, you could, you have ambient voice, you could actually speak, and just like you're talking to when you're talking to your phone, asking Siri something, you're going in and in your home, you're talking to your device so that you could, find out, the time you want to play music. All these actually been implemented in a hospital system where a patient, can actually have entertainment as part of that suite. They could order your food and do everything. And also a nurse, it's all on the same exact system. And the same, you walked in, if the sunlight is not enough within the space, your blinds automatically, will open up based on the present occupant center that's in that space. Your lighting can be modified, turn on and off to save energy based on the amount of light within that space as well. But also um, integrating AI within the whole platform and ecosystems as well. So if it's dictation, so you have cameras that are monitoring, but also can be taking the data from a nurse speaking to a patient, taking that information, articulating it, making notes, but also making recommendation as well as part of your wall, your workstation on wheels, and these are all integrated in something that could help you make decisions, but also make the space much more comfortable for the patient, but also helping to make the patient outcome much better because you're able to have one system speaking to another. You have the less I know what right hand is doing within the healthcare space, and those are some of the stuff that we don't do enough. But I think hospitals are getting it. There's more system coming along. Most of the new hospitals are actually thinking about it, the whole process, and are see how it's going to help, to really revolutionize healthcare, but also patient outcomes. Because that's what, at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're doing exactly what you're set out to do. Make sure that you're taking care of your patient, you're getting people out of the hospital, get them well. And I think having the ability to have the nurses and doctors spend more time with the patient, you know, um, whether it's speaking to them about their health, whether it's speaking to them about wellness, rather than actually sitting around and writing notes and really spending more time away from actually doing what you should be doing as a doctor or a nurse.
Oh wow, thank you so much. And as you're there, as you're speaking, they say don't do that, but sometimes you hit some words and like a question pops in your head. All right, but you know, as- this is also fascinating. You mentioned all the things that are now in new hospitals. Then you mentioned AI and how AI has the potential to change that. And the question that comes to me is, how do you future-proof a building to adapt to these rapidly evolving technologies, especially
Yeah,
in unforeseen public health crisis? But I don't think I want you to answer that question now. I think I want you to answer
yeah.
that one at the conference.
And I will.
I will.
I will. I
I
have a
will.
lot
I
of
have a lot
ideas,
of
and
ideas,
we're doing
and
that
we're doing
currently
that
in
currently
design,
in design.
and we'll
Yes.
talk
And
more
we'll
about
talk
it.
more about it.
But it's
But it's
truly,
truly,
it truly has to be a team effort. It truly has to be what I call pulling all the stakeholders together when you're doing the design to make sure that you're looking for blind spots, making sure that you're catering for any you know any changes that will occur. Because if you look at a hospital take maybe 3, 4 years or 5 years to design. By the time the hospital is finished constructed, it's like 6, 7, 8 years. And sometimes if we're doing IU Health Pavilion, which is $6.5 billion hospital. That's 11 years from design to construction. Can you imagine starting at 11 years and the changes that actually taking place 10 years, 11 years later? It can be completely different. So, as designers, that's something that I'm going to talk about how to do it, and what can you do to prevent, to make sure that you're not ripping everything out and doing it all over again in the next 10 years. So, those are some of the stuff that we're going to talk about in future.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. So you mentioned a part of the conference theme, which is future ready propositions, resiliency, and rebuilding. And your specific focus is on infrastructure innovations. Now, the question I have is 185 miles per hour wind, unprecedented. So, what does truly resilient healthcare facility look like, especially in regions prone to disasters like
Yeah.
hurricanes?
Well, 185 miles per hour. Not many things could stand up to that. So it's a testament that we still have building standards in Jamaica. To say that, so we have some ideas about resilience and how to build. Um, One of the biggest challenge that you have, and even if you want to, there's design standard. The most stringent design standard for hurricane is called the Dayton design standard, and this talks about equipment, within the space, the buildings, the structure, the hardening of the structure, whether it's the windows, hardening, the walls, everything associated with the roof structure, um, but also anchoring equipment, whether it's anchor equipment on the roof, anchor equipment, anything that could be a fall or could be blown away, by, most of these stuff that I think those are some of the biggest challenges that we had that we didn't do properly. A lot of the equipment were anchored. And then within the space itself as well, you have to make sure that when you're designing these spaces, there's even seismic requirement that's needed for a hospital, a class 1 hospital or class A hospital anywhere in the world. required scientific requirements, meaning that you have to have the ductwork or the pipework within the space designed or anchored, to meet the different scientific requirements. California is going through massive design changes over the past 10 years with what they call asphalt or HCI, that they're actually rebuilding all the hospitals and replacing all the hospitals to meet to meet seismic criteria, because they're saying that there's going to be, because of the San Andreas Fault location, that there's going to be a seismic activity, and the hospital has to withstand because it has to take care of patients, during, before, during, and after these type of natural disasters. So those are some of the stuff that I think that that's going to be implemented as part of the design going forward for the Caribbean. And I think Hurricane Melissa came and showed the possibilities with respect to the sustained wind, but also the tremendous damage that's possible. And so they have to look at how you can relocate from the hospital, so that it's not on the coast and it's not fully exposed. So these are some of the considerations that's actually taking place. Location is extremely important. Where do you locate it? And secondly, how do you harden the structure? What is the roof structure? Do you want to have a roof or just concrete slab? Those are some of the stuff that you have to think about, because there's no way you can design absolutely no building to withstand 185 miles per hour and add a roofing structure to it if it's not concrete roof. So those are some of the considerations that take place. And also with respect to equipment. So on the infrastructure side, one, your equipment shouldn't be in the basement anywhere, because that's going to be flooded. So how can we locate these equipment within the space so it's protected, and and so it's not exposed to these wind power? Because if you lose your equipment, you're going to lose the hospital. You're going to lose none of the MRI, none of the equipment is going to work. So those are some of the stuff that you have to think about. It's all inclusive in terms of design, but it's there's also design standards. There's resilient design standards all over the globe. There's UK has, the US has, but even Tahoe has what you call smart design, also, which talks about resiliency and sustainability. So in every region, you have different means of ways that you have these guidelines that you can put together. And I think it's going to be an effort to really combine the best of the best, but also make it regional as well, so that you could have our own standard in Jamaica, as part of the response to really dealing with anything with respect to these type of category 5 for 14. Will come.
All
It's not a
right.
matter of they're going to come again.
So it came once, it's going to come again. Okay, so another question for you is, why should healthcare professionals, policymakers, leaders, owners, why should they come to the 2026 Global Healthcare Conference, April 28th to April 30, 2026? Why should they bother to come?
Well, I've been involved 3 years, and for me, we have to understand the ecosystem of design. We have to understand that that hospital system is really what I call is the engine block and the heart, the heartbeat of any society. So having the right professionals actually together to talk about it, to really talk about how can we harden or design, how can we be much more resilient, how can we be much more sustainable, and how can we build systems and healthcare systems that's going to meet the future challenges with respect to the superstorm, super hurricanes, and everything super that's happening throughout the world. So these are I think it's such an important conversation. And if you're out there, if you're involved in healthcare, if you're a healthcare administrator, if you're a nurse, if you're a doctor, this is something that you absolutely have to be a part of, because you have to be an important part of this conversation.
Dr. Hamilton, thank you so much. I have one final question for you. And I want to say before I answer the question, I thank you so very much for your time. I really appreciate. I don't know how to say thank you enough, because I do understand the demands that are on you, especially right now. So, what is the number one actionable takeaway you hope that these professionals bring back to their own organization after hearing your presentation?
It's really like for me, it's really given them an insight into the possibilities of effective design and how we can actually have the conversation with infrastructure engineers, but not only in the engineers in the whole. It's really how we can have conversations with design professionals, when they're making decisions, and just understand that there's going to be an important part of any design solutions, that takes place, and also we'll also push them to be part of the conversation. It's for them to speak to their C-suite and say, hey, I have some ideas, with respect to the space that I think that would help if you're doing a new space or if you're redesigning or renovating a space. It's really trying to make sure that they're an important part of the conversation and they know that they have a voice and they have an understanding and they could go and even research some of the stuff that we talked about because they're being implemented globally. And we want to make sure that they're getting facilities that are best in class, to make sure that it's really taking care of the patients that they do care about, and they, this is really to talk about the environment that they live every day, and this is something that I think that they will walk away knowing the possibilities and knowing that we can really design first class facilities to be resilient and to be future ready.
Dr. Hamilton, I thank you so very much once again for your time and for answering our questions. I look forward to welcoming you to Silo St. Elizabeth, one of the areas that was hardest hit by Hurricane Melissa, and that currently does not have a healthcare facility. But we look forward to what the future brings and to building resilient healthcare facilities, and that the world will benefit from what Jamaica has learned after going through Hurricane Melissa. So, once again, we thank you so very much for your time. And to our audience, we look forward to seeing you 2026 Global
Thank you.
Healthcare Conference in Salo, St. Elizabeth. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garner.